Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from 3 countries, 2 continents, and featuring 5 guys separated only by the same language. Here's your host, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, wherever you're listening. Joined with me, as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
What's up, boys?
Mr. Alan Robinson.
How you doing, fellas?
Mr. Joe Whittaker.
You're right, Tom, yeah.
And he knows it, you know it, I'm just going to come out and say it. He looks better in a mask. It's Jamie Page.
How you doing?
And for anyone that doesn't know, go and check out Jamie's Instagram. I think he posted it on, where he looks like a Japanese cyclist in London, which is quite scary, actually, to be honest. But we'll move swiftly on to this week's shout-outs and thank yous, I think. First off, we've got Wacky Woodworks, Robert Evans, Ian Brody Smith, Cheese Grater. That's a cool handle if ever I heard one. Ragtie, Matt Brander, Ian Hay, Guido, Roller Design, Steve French, Jim Dockrell, Andrew McQuillan, Wilmore's World of Wood, KSFWG, Norbury, Anthony Tober, and Steve French. I didn't get a chance to check out SoundCloud and Facebook comments, but if you've commented over on there, thank you. Don't forget, everyone, you can listen to us, rate us on iTunes, all the rest of it, and a huge thank you for everyone that does get in touch, comment. We love all that stuff. So, anyone, do we have any random listener questions from last week? Emphasis on the random.
No, we don't. We've got, questions that we have banked from, that we haven't answered yet that we can get to later today if you'd like. But we had a lot of cool comments on last week's episode. But I didn't have a lot of questions, so didn't know if you wanted to.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to talk about the comments because, like you just said, Chris, we had some rather good comments, things that we didn't touch on and things that we didn't mention. But yeah, let's dive into those. So last week, Wacky Woodworks made a good comment that I read, and I haven't had a chance to reply to these comments yet, but I will do over the course of the next couple of days. He's basically turned around and said, it's my money, I earned it, it's my hobby, and I will spend it wherever I want to if I can afford it. And I think that's kind of, there's not really much to say about that, is there? If anyone else has got any input on that.
Yeah, and this is in regarding to people that have negative connotations towards you, or if they say something negative towards you regarding the type of tool you're using. Because there's that kind of, there is some negativity out there for some of those tools, like the Festool. Somebody sees the Festool and they go like ape crazy over it and go, oh, I could do that. And so that's what it's relating to. In case somebody didn't happen to listen to last week's episode, that's what we're talking about.
But yeah, also he made another comment, which kind of hit for me, because he mentioned he'd just bought one of the new Bosch gliding cool miter saws, and that somebody had made the comment about, oh, we're now being sponsored by Bosch and selling out and all the rest of it. And I think a lot of people suffer from those kind of viewpoints. I don't know if any of you guys have. I've certainly had it a couple of times. It's just a misconception for the most part, I think. And even if somebody is sponsored, then good on that person, because they're obviously doing the right things and being seen by the right people in that sense. So,
I think that, Jamie and I were on Jason McGinn's show last Friday, Precise Mistakes, and this was a topic of conversation regarding sponsorships and the negativity that people have towards them. And I kind of look at it differently, because if somebody in our community, a maker of any sort, is out there and manages to get a sponsorship, if you stop and think about it, that is the business world, the sponsor.
Absolutely.
Meeting our world, seeing value in it, and investing in it. So they're investing in our community and what we do. And anytime somebody now, granted, there are some things that I would never, accept a sponsorship of. But, but if people are out there looking to make a dime because they're going to keep the lights on and pay the mortgage, then I'm not going to give them a hard time about it. But I just think it should be really encouraging for people to see that sponsors are actually getting involved with other people's channels, because that means the business world is recognizing the value of what we do. And I'm talking primarily on YouTube, but Instagram is another one where I understand a lot of sponsors are actually turning their attention to Instagram as well. So I don't see it as a bad thing. I guess that's the point I wanted to make.
Yeah, and I think also the other thing to look at is if you're potentially looking to expand your own maker, creator, channel, online presence in whatever medium it is, surely that's potentially a good thing and a good form of encouragement if it happened to you as well. So that was kind of my take on that. But, Alan, Jamie, Joe, if you've got anything to throw in, then by all means.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, like, try and turn the tables and think, how would you react if you was producing videos or you was making Instagram posts and all of a sudden you received a message from a company that you've got a genuine interest in, that you've already used their products maybe, or you've got an interest in a new tool, and they offer you the opportunity to try it out and to share it with your audience? Would you really say no to that opportunity? I don't think there would be many people who would. All you have to really take into account is the person that you're watching or viewing the posts on Instagram or wherever it is, do they still have their integrity? Is there a clear point that them only saying what them saying because them paid to say it? Or is it clear and open throughout that it's from the get-go, it's their honest opinion and nothing will change their opinion of whatever they are talking about in that video? And if that's the case, then where's the problem? If that's not the case, of course, then that's when you start thinking, what's going on here? Kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's pretty obvious. I mean, if you happen to follow a creator, and like Joe, if I watch you do a video and all of a sudden I see you start using language that you don't typically use and using it in a manner that you wouldn't already use, I know that you've scripted this or somebody has scripted this for you, and I'm not hearing it from you. That's
Exactly.
That's real easy to pick up on.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got their own common sense and eyes and ears. Like you say, it's fairly obvious when things are coming from a marketing department, not coming from a maker. One thing, and I didn't want this to move into the kind of sponsorship arena, but whilst we're there, it's probably worth a couple of seconds. Anytime I'm approached by a company, I give them two kind of conditions, main conditions. First of all is if I wish to do whatever with that item, I get to do whatever I like with it. And that could be keep it, burn it, destroy it, whatever. And the second thing is I get to say whatever I like. And if I don't like something, I tell them up front. If I hate it, I'm going to tell people I hate it. If I think there's issues, I'll tell people, and I'll tell you as well, because that's presumably what part of the two-way conversation. And 9 times out of 10, the company believe in what they're selling, and they've got faith in their own product, and they say, yeah, because we're pretty darn confident that you're going to like it. So that's fine. If they think, well, actually, we want you to say what we want you to say, then it stops there, and you never see those things. So from my point of view, what I say is what I think, and if I say things that I don't like, then you will never see that because I'll never receive the item in the first place.
Right.
So it can be, but I think it's fairly obvious for people listening and viewing that what's genuine and what's not. And the other point is, if you think something's rubbish from a company and you say it's good, expecting them to send you more stuff, why would you want more stuff from a company that's sending you what you think is poor quality? Because you've got to get rid of it. It's just more. Why would you put in the effort to do a video and say it's good, so you have to do another video and waste even more of your time? It doesn't work.
Well,
me, at least.
The only reason why somebody would do that, Richard, is if there's actual dollars involved, because the money is not rubbish, but the tool may be rubbish. But if they're paying you to say it, then somebody may want to continue doing it that way. But you're going to lose a lot of integrity with your audience real fast if you start recommending lousy stuff, and it's just not something that anybody who's in a position to care about that would ever do in the first place. I'm not going to tell you Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill is the best wine that's ever been made. I mean, because obviously it's not. I don't care how much you pay me. I'm not going to say that.
Chris, this episode is actually sponsored by them. So,
oh well, I'm sorry. We just lost that sponsorship because it's not happening. Sorry, guys.
Cool. And I hadn't actually considered that angle about being paid, because I don't get paid currency by any company that I work with. It's a two-way relationship. the sponsorship and the support I receive is in the form of things that I'm going to use, because that's more value to me in the long term than in the short. So yeah, good point there, Chris, actually. So what's another one that Cheese Grater made a really good. Did anyone see the comment about the jigsaw?
I did see that, and he actually made a very good point.
And this is good because he actually says, not sure I agree with your argument of buying cheap tools to see if they like it before upgrading to something better. And I can't remember, was it you, Joe, that mentions?
Yeah, that was mine.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the intent, my sort of view on this was that comment wasn't you deliberately buy something that's cheap just to upgrade it later on, but you necessarily start at that end of the market because that's what you can afford, and you're sort of dipping your toe in the water. And I think that's how we all start in our hobbies. We all get what we can afford, and yeah, we've all probably bought stuff that we regretted later on and then had to replace. So there's that side of it as well. But specifically, he was talking about jigsaws, and I'm glad he mentioned jigsaws actually, and we'll get to that. You know, if you buy a cheap jigsaw, it's most likely inaccurate, difficult to use, loud, dusty, etc., and that will put you off using it. Now, we did talk about, or I mentioned the Festool range of jigsaws, and there is a big divide. If you, I'm a member of a Festool talk group on Facebook, and it is Festool users.
Okay.
Yeah? First and foremost, I will point out and say that these aren't snobby people. These are great guys who are good at what they do, and they are helpful.
That was the first thing I was going to say. So a bunch of you snobs got together and decided to make a group, did you? No,
you
but
know
okay.
what? It's totally not that at all, and it's not all about talking about that. It's a very good group. Guys are helpful, really helpful and approachable and nice. Anyway, there's this huge divide within the kind of Festool world of users. And the jigsaw, the Carvex jigsaw that they make, is Marmite. Half the people love it, and half the people want to bash it with a hammer because they just don't get on with it. I kind of get on with mine, but I know loads of people that absolutely hate it with a passion. And I think a lot of that is down to the user, because it can be quite complicated to set up, and you don't just change the blade from one to another. It's a little bit more to it than just using a jigsaw. But the guy goes on, when we tried a more expensive, better one, it's most likely at the end of the day going to be night and day. And I think that's probably true on the whole, but just to complicate things further, it isn't necessarily the most expensive thing is the best thing for that individual. That's the key, is for the individual, because sometimes you like the cheaper stuff, sometimes you like the more expensive stuff. So it's...
Well, I kind of equated Cheese Grater's point, that what he was trying to say. And I think maybe Alan will be able to jump in on this, and Joe too as well, and Richard, possibly even you. But Jamie is just going to sit back and smile because I'm bringing this up. His point was that if you start out with a really cheap tool, and I'm going to use the scroll saw as an example. If you start out with a really crappy scroll saw, it may turn you off from doing scroll sawing in the future. And you know what? I'm going to give the guy his props, because that may well be the case with me, because I've never actually used a good scroll saw. And so I just kind of hate the process to trying to use the one that I own. And so he made a good point there. It's like, you shouldn't judge, and this is a kind of a scroll sawing is kind of a niche market kind of hobbyist thing, granted, but that may be the reason why I don't like doing scroll sawing, just because I've never actually tried it on a good machine, other than the fact that I just don't have the friggin' patience. But if it was a nice machine, I might enjoy it more.
That's very. I mean, because Jamie, was your first scroll saw the record?
No. My first scroll saw was a very, very cheap screw fix on it. It cost about £60, I think, which is about $70, I think, in the States. And the widest part of the table was maybe 10 inches, I suppose, if that. And It was pin blade. It
It's-
was really nothing special.
Joe, I can,
Yeah, I know exactly where he's going after last week's.
Come on. My girlfriend's always said to
And-
me
and I-
that
and I
she
still
wishes I was
stand-
10
I still-
inches. My girlfriend wishes
Yeah.
that I was 10 inches, but I told her I'm not folding it in half for nobody.
Gentlemen, please, somebody think of Richard. Somebody think of Richard.
The family can't hear because I've got my headphones in. Fortunately, thank you, Joe. Because I was in a similar position. I borrowed a scroll saw to do a project about 4 or 5 years ago from a friend of mine, who makes model aeroplanes. So he was cutting thin bits of balsa and whatnot, and that was a really cheap, like £30 from Aldi kind of scroll saw.
Yeah.
And within a very short, because I was trying to cut like 1/2 inch or thick hardwoods like walnut and old hardwood flooring, basically it was, and it just wouldn't. It was taking ages, and I was hating it. And so I went on eBay and bought a second-hand record scroll saw, which is the one I've got, and it was worlds apart. Now, I didn't, like Alan, I don't really like scroll sawing. It is used because that's the only thing that will do the job. But there was a huge leap there between the two. I still hate it,
Yeah.
but that's, again, like Chris said, it's down to patience for me.
Yeah, my first scroll saw, same thing as Jamie. It was little crappy old pinned one, and it did turn me off of it. Then Jim Dockrell gave me this Delta one I have now, and it is a lot nicer. The blades aren't constantly jumping out on the thing. I can see the difference, and I still don't like it.
My
It's just a patient thing,
the
it's
one
fine.
I've got now is a record power one. Like you were saying, Richard, and it's basically identical to Alan's one. But then obviously you see loads of scrollers and they've got the DeWalt 788 over in the States. And Chad from Mancrafting bought a DeWalt 788 while I was over there. He bought Mike Fulton's old one. And I had to go on that while I was over there. And man, that is a beautiful scroll saw to use. It makes my one look like a heap of, well, have you got an editing software where you can, it makes it look rubbish. Let's say it goes so much smoother. It's a joy to work on.
That's, I guess, the point that Trees Grader was making is a valid one, and I wanted to bring that up and let him know that we agree with you, and we didn't address it and we didn't look at it that way last week. But I'm glad you brought that up because that is a good point.
Yeah, I mean, with certain tools, it can make a world of difference.
But it's almost like it's still an unknown. You know, the upgrade is still an unknown, just like the first purchase was.
I think that's where like word of mouth, and especially with YouTube, comes in as well. So if you wasn't part of a community and you didn't speak to anybody else who was into making as well, and you buy a cheap secondhand scroll saw, try it, and you don't like it, that's your only experience with the scroll saw. If you then watch a YouTube video and see somebody no problem cutting on a scroll saw, no problem changing the blade, it's that when you can realise, hold on, it might just be the machine that I've got that's no good. That seems to be pretty easy. Maybe I need to upgrade, and that's when you can perhaps get some better advice on the subject.
Definitely, and that kind of goes back to the reviews and the sponsorship side of YouTube, and just generally being part of a community, not just the community that we refer to, but a community in whatever area it is if you're diving into turning, for example, and people talk about sharpening the tools. If you're going into scroll sawing, it's that little particular rabbit hole for whatever you like. But Andrew McQuillan made a good comment as well. He says, as a hobbyist, he's bought 2 tools this year, a router and a multi-tool. He looked at the Makita and the DeWalt versions that were around the £100 mark, and he ended up buying the lower end, £30 each. So rather than spending £200 on 2 tools, he ended up spending £60. And this was the point of the comment was, both work well enough, and he can do the jobs that he intends doing with those, which is, at the end of the day, that's brilliant. You can't fault that. If it works, it works, regardless of the price.
Well, I mean, I think that goes back to if the user is satisfied, and what he's basically saying is, for me, it works well enough. And considering the savings, it certainly works well enough because he saved 140 pounds or $140, whatever the case may be. But you know, the whole point of the conversation last week was there's a real difference between doing things for a living and making money, and there's a totally different perspective on doing things as somebody who's out in their garage doing things as a hobby, because I admitted that I am a lot like him. I was in the group and still am in the group of, you know what, it works well enough. I don't need the high-end precision that you know a lot of these more upper end tools will give, because I can get by with lesser and it's good enough for me. Yeah,
and it's about the mileage as well. You know, if you're using a tool, it doesn't matter whether it's a saw, a router, a drill. If you're using it 5-6 days a week, 5-6 hours a day, that's, you know, within a month, your hourly cycles for those tools are going to be much bigger than somebody who's using it of an evening, at the weekend, whenever. So there's the longevity side of it as well, and that's probably where it's good enough is good enough.
Yeah, and you know what?
In the two settings.
A perfect example of that is if somebody does a lot of sanding and you're doing it you're doing sanding. Let's say your job is to prepare wood for somebody else to finish. You're part of an assembly line type thing. Now there is a major difference in random orbit sanders, because if you're doing sanding for 5 hours a day, some sanders will vibrate the living crap out of your hand, and by the end of that day, your hand's going to be numb. And some sanders actually work really well, and as far as not giving you that kind of fatigue. And normally the ones that don't give you that kind of fatigue are the higher end of the sanders that we're talking about. So there's a point to be made either way you're looking at it.
Just as an aside from that, I did a show at the end of last year, and I was talking to one of the reps at Merca, you know, the yellow expensive sanders, and they just brought out a range of sanders where they've got like these little chips in them, Bluetooth type chips that connect to an app on your phone, or more importantly, your boss's phone, that gives you the hourly use of that individual tool. So not only can your boss tell how many hours you're sanding at work, but they can also, for that very reason of the vibration, the exposure and fatigue, from a health and safety point of view.
Oh, that's great.
Which, because I basically went up to this guy and he's talking about it, and I was like, well, that's just a gimmick. What use is that? And he said, well, it's for this reason. And then it was like, yeah, that's a kind of a good point, actually. I hadn't considered, because, you know, I sand, my hand shakes for an hour or two afterwards if I'm doing it all day, and then you kind of move on. But if that is your job, like Chris said, there's a health aspect to that as well.
But the main reason for them to put that on there, trust me, was to make sure that your boss knew how long you're actually working. And
yeah, definitely.
The whole safety side, that's how they sold it to the public. But, you know, let's be honest. They want to know who's slacking off.
If that was me, I'd just turn it on and just leave it on the side or dangling somewhere.
A friend of mine is a stonemason. Right? One of my mates is a stonemason, and he runs the quarry at Portland. It's like the flagship quarry down in Portland, you know, quarrying Portland stone, and they've got £1 million diggers and all the rest of it for pulling this stone out. And he can sit in his office, and there's a list of all the diggers that are working in the yard, and which ones are working and which ones are not working, and for how long for, you know, whether the engine's idling. And he was saying that when they had these things installed, the workers were just up in arms, because they suddenly realised that they could go out in the yard like half a mile from the boss and not just sit there and read the paper, because he knew, not only does he know whether they're working or not, he knows, because they can't just like sit there with the thing spinning round and it says it's moving. It tells him how much strain all the hydraulics is up to, and whether they're actually working and lifting, or it's crazy.
Yeah, nobody likes Big Brother looking over their shoulder, man. I'm telling you.
It is just that. It's all about Big Brother, isn't it? Yeah, it's good stuff. Paul Wilmore made a comment, apart from saying great show, guys, and thanks, Paul. We always like it when people are amused by what we try and do here. He says he has the tools he can afford, and a lot of them are secondhand, and that is that is fine. Second-hand market is a good place to look. He says, I'm learning that some of the cheaper tools, he's actually outgrowing them and finding the precision in them now is becoming annoying because he's kind of upping his game, and I can see that. So he's basically agreeing with Joe there, sort of saying, you know, you get into it, buying cheaper tools and then upgrading is good if you're moving on. One thing I would say to people with the second-hand market is be wary, be careful, because certainly in the UK, and I'm sure it happens everywhere across the world, there are a lot of guys who earn money, you know, carpenters, builders, that have their vans basically emptied overnight, and these tools have to go somewhere. So a little bit of common sense. I saw a couple of pictures on Facebook today of somebody at a car boot sale, and there was just a line of 6 of those petrol-powered concrete cutting disc saw, like a circular saw for cutting through. Like, who has 6 of those out of the back of a caravan at a car boot sale that they're selling? You know, so be mindful of that. I'm not saying don't buy secondhand, because it is a good place, and I've bought lots of secondhand, but be mindful of that and kind of common sensey as well, because potentially that could be someone's livelihood. That's
I mean, because it's the old adage though. It's if the deal looks too good to be true, there's probably a reason for it. Either it is too good to be true, or you may be dealing in stolen goods. So just be careful. I mean, you're not going to go out and buy, you know, like I mentioned last week, you're not going to go buy somebody may have a brand new looking Powermatic table saw, a Powermatic 66 table saw for sale, and if they're listing it for $300. I'm going to be a little wary, you know, because that table saw costs quite a bit more than $300, and anybody who actually went out and bought it would never resell it for that amount of money unless they just had no clue. You know, but how can you buy something, you know, that expensive and not know? I mean, it makes no sense. So it's too good to be true. Potentially
there. KSFWG, he said one area we didn't touch on was age, and this is a good point as well. He says, how long am I going to be able to use this tool for? So someone like Chris, there's probably not much point buying a really expensive tool. But, you know,
what happened there?
What did I do? What did I do? But you know, that's just so wrong. But you know what, Richard?
I don't know. That's a bit out of order, because he has got a son he can pass it down to.
Yeah.
Well, there is that to consider as well. Yeah.
No, but you know what? I will give that to you to an extent. I mean, it's kind.
That was awesome.
Oh, I have so many adjectives I'd like to use towards you right now, Richard. Anyway, because you know what, and I mentioned this in a video I did a long time ago. It's about, you know, how good is good enough, and my point to that is you can spend the time hand cutting dovetails into a drawer and doing this fine woodworking. And you can do that even for like a shop project if you want to practice doing that skill. But it boils down to, are you making this to last 200 years? Because if you are, there's a certain way you should be making it. Or are you making this just to get by within your own lifetime? And I'll be honest with you, I probably don't have enough years left in me to where a butt joint is going to fail me at this point in time. So,
just wait till doctors start using that. How long have I got, doc? I'll just stick to butt joints from now on.
I'm going to shut up now because I don't like any of you people anymore. Goodbye.
Don't bother using glue on the joints either.
That's it. Screws will be fine for you.
But
it's a very neodymium. How do you say that? Those magnets. There's really strong magnets. Yeah, just embed those and they put it on. There you go.
Put a painter's tape.
That's my lifetime right there.
Duct tape.
Wow. Wow. Okay, goodbye.
I'm not getting involved in this, Chris.
Thank you, Alan.
But it is a very good. It is a good point, though. I mean, when I do my router courses, the vast majority of people, that not everyone, but the biggest proportion of people are retirees. So you know, they're older than I am, and they probably have got, hopefully, in from my point of view at least, probably I've got longer to use the tools that I use than perhaps they have, and that is something to consider. That again, only the individual can consider. So, but he then went on to say he can afford a saw stop, but he's just bought the rigid job site saw, which I've got no idea. Presumably Chris can enlighten us on that. But then he goes on to say that he's then upgraded with the blades. So he's got a better saw than original, because, and it's kind of a halfway happy medium, I guess.
Right. Well, and it is, because and I'll talk to you as the elder statesman of the group, because I am retired. I do not go to work in the morning. I am not a working stiff any longer. I retired 10 years ago. I currently have the money to go out and buy and equip my shop and become, the next, in appearance anyway, not talent, but in appearance, I could become the next wood whisperer. I mean, I do have the money to equip my shop that way. It just makes no sense for me to do that, because I'm on a, if I'm not working, I've got X amount that's there, and that has to last me. So it doesn't make sense for me to do that. I could, but I'd really rather not do it if I don't have to. And so, rather than going out and buying and my perfect example of this is because I was in a real quandary about my table saw. I really wanted a nice cabinet saw for my shop. But then I realized, you know what? I really don't need to invest that heavily in that saw. I will go ahead and downgrade, and I'll get a hybrid. Cast iron top, nice saw, not cheap, by the way. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't as expensive as that cabinet saw. So ultimately, I decided not to get what I really wanted, but I got what I knew I could use and what I knew was going to be an upgrade from what I currently had.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I was thinking almost exactly the same thing today. I've got a Makita site saw that I've had. It's the only table saw I've ever owned. It cost me £350, something like that. It's not an expensive one at all. But I've got some really high quality professional blades for it, and it's fine for what I need to use it for. And I was thinking, I was using it today thinking, do you know what? I could upgrade this. And then I just thought, I don't need to. There's no point. It does what it does. It does it good enough. Leave it as it is. So that's a good one. Norbury mentioned that Jay Bates was a self-confessed tool snob, and he doesn't mean that in an offensive way. I didn't take it in an offensive way, but he then goes on to say probably not the best example, and that was when I mentioned, I think, about the comments that Jay hadn't seen about the hand tools.
Regarding the domino, I believe is what it was. You were talking about Jay having the domino, and he had some comments about it, and he went, "It's the Indian, not the arrow." That's when you were explaining to us what.
That's right. Yeah, but he also made comments about he's got some some really nice hand tools as well, Jay. But yeah, I mean, I guess from a point of view, if I look at something being the longevity I need to pay for itself, to create the income from a commercial point of view, I guess I am a bit of a tool snob in that sense, but it's not a snob as in I'm only going to look at the good stuff or the expensive stuff. It's I'm going to look at the best solution for my particular requirements. Well, I think you can be a tool snob at the very low end of the market as well, from that point of view.
Because I think of snob, and my definition of snob is somebody who thinks they're better than you. And so, in order to put it in that context, if you say that somebody is a tool snob, then you're saying that this person feels they're better than you because they have this. And this we already decided this isn't really has nothing to do with it. It has to do with this, and it's the person. It's the person, not the tool. So I mean, snob's probably not the right word. I understand that being a tool junkie, Alan, you're welcome. Is and Richard, you mentioned it. It's the ease of use. Is what makes you happy. We talked about that last week. It's if you're a tool junkie and you only want to buy the tools that make you happy and that you work with, and they happen to be on the expensive end of the spectrum, it's your shop, your money. You do what you want to do. Yeah, exactly.
I think you're probably right there, and I've probably misused the word, but yeah, I'll go with that. And then I think the last comment was, because we're pushing for time, we haven't actually touched on what we were going to talk about, or what we advertised we were going to talk about, which is going to be very quick. Anthony Tobar, he said, very interesting and amusing show again. He said he could weigh in on the main topic, but he'd probably end up getting banned, which is sort of joked about. He then goes, nothing triggers, in inverted commas, me more than Festool tools. Now, from my point of view, I'd be really, really, like, if he doesn't want to put it as a public comment, then get in touch with me, like message me, because I am genuinely interested in why people are, to use your words, triggered or find that brand offensive to or whatever. It's a curiosity for me. And I'm trying to sort of understand it. And then he mentioned about, you know, Joe flying over to the States and squirreling away all the deposits in Fort Knox, which I wasn't aware he'd done.
That's why I did that bit out.
Me either. Give it back. What are you doing?
But, yeah, no. And then he also mentioned about he'd stumbled on a channel, Peter Millard, which I'm going to go and find. He says he makes a lot of stuff out of MDF, and I know in the States, MDF is kind of frowned upon, is it not?
I don't know if it's necessarily frowned upon. I mean, MDF is a great material for a lot of different purposes. It's just it's a nightmare to work with because of the dust that it creates and things of that nature. And it's but no, I mean, if you're looking for a cheap alternative to a very paintable surface, if you want to do something that's extreme, that takes paint very well, MDF is just awesome. Yeah. Or if you're looking for a material that comes as flat as it can come without having you to work at it, then MDF is wonderful. I just don't, and this is me personally, I'm not going to speak universally for everybody in the United States, obviously, but for me personally, it's just a nightmare to use. I just do not enjoy using it. It's not good for joinery because it's not very strong in a lateral movement. I mean, horizontally it's fine, but if you want to connect a piece of MDF corner to corner and do like the butt joint I was talking about, Joe, let's say you used biscuits, that joint is going to be very, very weak because MDF is not strong in the direction that joint needs to be, you consider strong in. But flat this way, supported, fine. MDF is like, there's no problem with that. I mean, is it as good as plywood? No, but it's not bad. If that's what you can afford, then go use it. Who cares?
Do any of you other guys use MDF at all? Have used it in projects to make stuff?
I use it for shop jigs now and then, and I've actually had more success using MDF with shop jigs than I have with plywood. Because, like a crosscut sled, for example, it's going to stay straight forever. It's just going to stay a flat surface as long as I own it. I still have my first crosscut sled. I've made 3 now, and my first one was MDF, and it's the one that's still perfectly straight.
Yeah. I'm using a ton of it at the minute. I'm making them radiator covers, and that's just all out of 18mm MDF, and it's joined with dowel joints. And it's strong enough for what it is because, of course, the radiator cover is purely decorative. So, but yeah, it's a nightmare to work with. Routing it in my shed, it's like a winter wonderland, like in the middle of a snow globe when you're doing it. But
I hope you got some good dust extraction in there.
I got a mask.
The reason I ask is because I use MDF a lot, and not just the brown MDF, but also the moisture resistant and the fire retardant stuff, the pink and the blue stuff, and that's even more hazardous in terms of health. But again, for me, that's another good argument to spend a lot more money on the tools that don't make the mess in the first place, and then obviously with the mask and all the rest of it. So I use it a lot, and I actually like using it. It's not the healthiest of stuff, but once you get used to it and you realize its limitations, like Chris has said about it splits out very easily and things like that. I mean, it doesn't bother me using it.
I'm actually going to be using MDF to do a full project for the first time within the next few days. Actually, I've got to make like a replica mailbox for my cousin's wedding to put all the letters in for a wedding.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be the first time we'll be using it on a full site for a full project.
I was going to ask you because I mean, and guys, I don't know. I mean, MDF, as far as I know, here in the States, doesn't come any thinner than 1/2 inch. I don't believe the majority of what you find MDF is 3/4 inch. But I'm thinking, Jamie, especially you with scroll sawing. If there was a way to use MDF and do scroll sawing, I would imagine that would be a pleasure because not only is it very flat, but it's very easy to cut through.
Apparently, so I've heard. I mean, I'm not sure how true it actually is, whether it's rumours or not. Apparently, MDF dulls blades very, very quickly.
it is quite tough on the tools because it's pretty much sawdust and resin, isn't it? And like formaldehyde glue.
Oh,
so it's got a lot of glue in it.
It's not like pine. It'll clog up your blade really quick. Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I just thought
it doesn't clog the blades up. No, it's fairly open in terms of that because it basically just goes to dust. But it's tough on the tools because it's got that glue in it. But you don't actually really notice the glue when you cut it because it's all like a dry powdering. But over here it's available 3, 4, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 25 and I think 30 mil as well in 8x4 sheets.
Liam Hill just said that you can get in the chat. He just said you can get 6 mil.
Yeah, and you can also get the 6 mil bendy ply as well, which is pre-curved on the back. So if you want to make a cube for
that's handy. Yeah, that's actually what I wanted because I needed the back to curve round.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's handy to know.
It's not cheap though.
It's not, but it's better than trying to cut all those curves yourself.
It is.
Yeah, it is definitely.
But no, that's good stuff. So I quite like MDF. Or rather, I don't have a problem with it. But were there been any comments in the live chat, Jamie, before we sort of head on to the?
There's been a couple. There was one question in particular right from this very start from Ragtie. He said, "What do you feel are the reasons for your show being so entertaining and fun for us viewers and listeners?" Now, I'd like to take full responsibility for this.
It's Jamie. Let's just give it to him. It's because Jamie's here.
I think we do really well because we hit the nail on the head with the international thing. We've taken guys from all different countries and different points of views and different aspects and brought them all together in one. So everybody's welcome here, and we have every kind of view here.
There you go. And Ragtie, and I was going to answer that by saying I don't have a freaking clue, dude. But I appreciate the compliment.
I'd say we'll gel really well. I think like each of our personalities, I think we go well together. There's enough of a clash here and there, but then at the end of the day, each one complements the other. In my eyes, anyway. I mean, it's always very hard to pinpoint your own kind of thing, but that's what I would say.
That's well put. We do butt heads now and then, but never to a point of we don't hate each other. We're all in love.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. We all get on, and we're all honest about getting on, and nobody hides anything. Everyone's open with each other. I think. I certainly am with you guys, and I think from that point of view, we take the mickey out of each other, and we have a laugh without taking offence to it, and I think that comes across to other people. But,
I was going to say, considering this is a podcast and we started it out that way, so it was something that you'd only listen to, and we only just recently started doing this live on YouTube, but initially it was because as far as a podcast goes, we had the best looking host there was on the planet.
I've definitely got a face for radio. Yeah, I'll go with that.
The only reason we chose you.
Keep calling me an old man, dude. Go ahead. I'll get you back.
I don't doubt it for a second. Somebody did it.
Should we get on with what the whole theme of this podcast? Well, I mean, this show was supposed to be about, or
it's probably time to
be about.
We've got 5 minutes to discuss what the title of the thing was about.
Amongst one of the questions we'd had before was from somebody. Let me just find it in the list.
Do you want me to read it out? I've got it,
if you've got it in front of me, I've got the whole list here. I'm trying to scroll.
It says, do you guys have any plans to physically all be in the same place at once to do the show? If so, where would that be?
I'll tell you what. Unless we find a sugar daddy, then or a happy set of circumstances. I don't think that we will probably ever be able to all get together, and if we ever did, it would be because somehow Alan and I were able to fly over to the UK. So it would most likely happen in the UK because it would just be less expensive for 2 people to fly to the UK than it would be for 3 people from the UK to fly over to the North America. So it most likely, if it ever did happen, it would happen over in the UK. But the chances of that happening, unless said sugar daddy steps up and wants to fork over a couple grand, so Alan can go, I can go to London and get drunk on the street. It's just not going to happen.
That would be like a dream. Bahamas, yeah. That would be like a dream come true, but it would have to be like a sponsored thing because I personally could never afford that in a million years.
Oh, yeah, that's $1,000 plane ticket. I mean, I don't know what Jamie just paid or what Joe just paid for theirs. I mean, they would have a much better perspective on what it costs to fly back and forth. I haven't. Last time I flew over to the UK was when I flew to Ireland, and that was many years ago, and that was not cheap then. And I'm sure the prices have gone up because that's that inflation thing. Yeah, it'll kick you in the ass when you really want to.
It was £700 for me return.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was about the same for us as well when we went over. But I was going to say, did you actually fly? Did you, Chris? You didn't go on a boat?
No, I flew. I didn't know. I didn't go. A boat.
Oh yeah. I see where this is going.
Richard,
They had planes back then.
Richard, I just missed being the last passenger on the Titanic. If that helps you. God, you are a dick.
Oh, he's got you there. What happened?
No comebacks on that one, I'm afraid.
Just stick about Chrissy.
Yeah. I mean,
I just gave Joe his first happy point at editing. There you go.
I'm leaving that one in.
Yeah. Oh. And by that I mean,
That's the intro.
And by that, no. Well, before anybody takes offense to that, I mean, in case anybody doesn't know, Dick is the nickname to Richard.
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
And Richard's just proven to us why that's the case. So go ahead.
It's a nickname to Jamie as well.
I mean, from the point of view of all five of us getting together, it's kind of unfortunate, in inverted commas, that there is a few thousand miles of water between the two sort of halves, for one of or 2/3. Get the maths right. It's between us.
You're a woodworker.
If we were, Eastern Europe and the UK, it would probably be easier because there's only 25 miles of water for us to cross, and then it's a road trip. But because it's only airfares, isn't it? Whichever way you look at it, it's flying, which is for anyone, that's logistically is going to be a big deal, regardless of where they sit on the.
We could drive like over the North Pole down into Canada, down that way, go on a proper tour, like Top Gear did in the Land Rover.
Yeah, you have to go. You still have to go to Europe and then Scandinavia and then up into the Arctic and then across, and it's still going to be a nightmare. Yeah, whatever way you look at it, Joe, that's the long way round.
You might as well change the name of the podcast to National Geographic.
But the point, I think, is that it's not going to happen. Or definitely not going to happen. It's still a possibility, but I think from my own perspective, it is a
long shot.
Difficult one. It's going to be a long shot, a difficult one. But if circumstances arise, then I think all five of us would definitely be pouncing on that opportunity, like a lion after a gazelle.
Yeah, because obviously I'd like to jump up and hit Richard at some point in time.
That would probably happen.
And
I'm taller than you, Chris, and I'd struggle to do that.
Richard's a tall guy. If you guys haven't seen Richard, the only of you that I've ever met in person is Jamie. And I know, Jamie, you've met Joe in person, haven't you?
No, I've met Richard.
And you've met Richard
twice.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, okay, that's great. No, that's great.
Yeah, I've pretty much driven.
Well, you guys live in the same freaking country, for crying out loud, and you haven't met up. So yeah, I don't know. I think Alan, do you have a sugar daddy that you know of that could chip in and make us? Yeah, I'm out of it too.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, buddy. Pat Lap's paying my way 2018. Let's start a fundraiser.
Let's see.
Yeah. Oh God, that's what we need—a GoFundMe to send us to the UK. I don't think. Yeah, let's not go there.
I think there are better causes out there than that.
I think so too. Yeah, I think
so
too.
In the future, the moons could align. This past year, the three of these guys came to the States, and it was all fairly close to the same time. You never know. In the next year or two, we're still doing this. Things could happen.
All Alan
It
knows
would
is it's
be-
not going to. All Alan knows is it's not going to cost him any extra money because if it happens, it's going to be a freebie on his end.
I was saying,
From
a
his
better
ears.
idea, maybe. A better idea. Maybe you guys could all just come to my shop and we can just do a podcast from here.
That way he doesn't have to go anywhere either. So
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
You must be joking. Your
Bring beer.
computer breaks down 9 times out of 10.
That's why I love you.
Well, I'm just going through the door, trying to be organised for further down in the show, and I've just realised I have got no shout out at all this week. I've been that busy. So, do any of you guys have any shout outs for anything? What have you all been up to?
And see, you are such a space case. We have already
We all have
we've-
a shout
we've
out. It's all
already
the same
talked
one.
about this.
Oh, of course, yes.
Oh God.
We had, yeah.
You're as bad as Jamie last week on the Friday show for Jason. He forgot the name of this podcast for crying out loud.
Which podcast?
Wait, but I'm just going to look directly in the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I have to deal with on a weekly basis. Please have pity. Please have pity. This is just bad. We have all seen a video that we would all like to, all 5 of us, get behind. And I don't want to be the one to steal the thunder, so I'm going to let somebody else introduce the video because, and the maker and the person who put it together, because I think we all have a big thumbs up on this one, and we wanted to universally say one shout out this week, and it was to this guy. So who wants to go?
Well, I think it should be Jamie because it was originally Jamie's shout out, was it not? That he was going to jump in on because he got upset that you.
No, it wasn't. It was mine, and he just got upset that I claimed it before he did, and then we decided to see because I share. It's unlike these people. I share, and so when an idea comes up, I share the good idea, as opposed to claiming it and going mine. So I don't care who I've talked enough. Somebody else introduced the video. And
I don't mind doing it.
Go on then, Jamie.
Do it.
The shout out from all of us is from Nate. The channel is called A Young Man's Workshop, and he done a video whilst I was actually in Atlanta, and he took a few makers to the side and interviewed them and things like that. The video is on his channel called Making, and then it's about community. And everyone gives their different insights on there. He's got Andy Berkey, Jimmy DeResta, Izzy Swan, Jesse Ueda. There's loads of different makers on there just talking about the community, what their views on it are. It's just an absolutely incredible video all round.
They're very well. Yeah, thank you.
Very well put together. Just brilliant. And he's actually got it seems like a series of them. All different titles of them. So yeah, you definitely go and check it out.
What were you going to say, Alan?
Same thing he basically just said. They're very well made, very serious interviews. They're not just jerking around and having a laugh. They were very in-depth and well-made interviews. It was a very professionally made video.
Yeah, and the cuts between people were very well put together as well because they go together very well. The comments being made.
It has the feel of a documentary on our community.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Joe. What'd you say?
I was just going to say, definitely is. It's like you're watching a TV documentary rather than your standard YouTube video. The production quality is top notch with it. So, as Richard was saying, it's not some video that's just been, here's a bunch of clips, stick them together. There's a lot of thought gone into it, and it well deserves a watch.
Doesn't look like I made it. Looks like he made it.
Yeah, and the reason why I like that is because if you watch that video, it's going to be hard for you not to want to become inspired to become part of this community if you don't happen to be part of it right now. It's going to be hard for somebody to watch that video and go, I don't ever want to be involved with that community, because it's very, very inspiring to get involved in the community that we all currently like. And it's you're a maker. If you're a maker of anything, it doesn't really matter because the same rules apply.
Yeah, I mean,
awesome video.
I watched it on my phone, which is obviously a tiny wee screen, and it really doesn't do it justice. And going back to what Joe said about being the documentary style, it does it. I think we'll do it, and I'm going to watch it on the television because I think that's going to do it more justice to actually watch it than sitting on a phone or even a big computer screen. So definitely worth a look. So what's everyone been doing in their own workshops recently, since last time at least?
I actually I can remember I think it was last week I mentioned I purchased some bowls from a boot fair.
That's
Or,
right. Yeah, you're going to rip
well,
someone else's turnies off and sell them as your own, weren't you, or something?
Not selling them as my own. I actually put one on a lathe. Put one on the lathe a couple of days ago, and it was actually come out of a fire damaged house, and I just took it all back, and it was like really badly scorched. I've actually got to put pictures on Instagram yet.
Presumably you didn't take it back to the house that it got damaged in. Like,
no, I've actually
scare it.
There.
No!
I can go and get it now if you want. But I took it all back, and it's actually really, really nice. So, and someone's actually already claimed that. So, yeah, I'm not allowed to sell my stuff when I make it or refinish it. People seem to claim it. And I also made a green acrylic pen, which I actually finished with Yorkshire grit of all things. So
Nice.
Yeah,
there's a group on about Yorkshire grit, isn't it? I'm hearing a lot
it's called grit. Yeah, it's called Grit and Sheen. So yeah, it's quite a good group.
All right. Well, I can tell you. I'm sorry. I'm just going to try and move things along because I'm looking at the time and I'm looking at Joe and Joe's looking at the time and I'm going, okay, let's move it on. I just put a Kleenex around this because I forgot I don't have the bandage on this finger anymore, or I took it off anyway, and I don't want you guys to have to see that. So I'm limited on what I can do and what I can't do. So I've just been trying to do videos where I pass on some information that I have, and I don't mean this to be for people that are highly skilled in woodworking. I'm trying to do more of a basic thing for people so that, you know, anybody who might be just getting into it or just, you know, maybe somewhat of a novice at doing things, I pass on information along those lines. So Doc says I got a couple more weeks before I can actually get out there and make something. But until then, I figured, you know what, at least I can, if I have something that I think is worthwhile to know, and, you know, that's questionable. But, you know, if there is, then I'll just go ahead and make some videos about what I happen to know that might be, and possibly pass on some good advice. So that's basically all I've been doing in my shop. It's all I can do.
Cool.
And I am back on the build videos. Terrible. I made a license plate video. I made a video making knives. I got a new bandsaw. Going back to what we were saying earlier, I got a cheapy bandsaw, like a Mastercraft 9-inch bandsaw for it was like $100. My father-in-law gifted it to me, and it has terrible reviews across the board about not tracking correctly and the blades breaking. And I just went out and bought a couple of Bosch better blades, brought it home, put it on. It bounced just fine on it. I haven't broken one blade, and it's working beautifully. So we don't have time today for me to tell the story behind the bandsaw, but we got a new bandsaw in the shop. I'm really excited about it.
Excellent. Everyone's getting all bandsawed up lately, aren't they? That's pretty.
Yeah.
That's
I love it.
Yeah, I've just got a new one.
Oh, tell us about it, Jamie.
If you were here last week, Alan, you would have heard the story.
Damn it. My wife said no, all right?
I know. We know who wears the pants. Anyway, Joe, what are you doing?
I'll speed through it. I'm still doing the radiator covers. Need to get some more MDF, then they'll be done. That's me done.
Has Richard frozen up on us again?
Oh, perfect. I'm trying to speed through it.
No, there he is. I think he just
here.
There he is. Hi, Richard.
Yeah, no, I was listening to Joe talking about his radiator covers, and it kind of went all sort of jittery, and I wasn't sure whether it was Joe or whether it was me. It was obviously me, but yeah, I'm here. So I've been in my workshop today making some stuff for Catherine, and then next week I'm back off on site. I'll be making some radiator covers as well, actually, Joe. So we'll have to have a little chat about that after the show. So yeah, busy, making no videos at the moment, but I am still planning and putting together for the new kind of rebooted cutting edge questions. So if you're listening and you want to get in on that with a little video question, then by all means get in touch with that. So that should be good. So yeah, cool. Where can everyone be found then?
Well, you can find me on YouTube at JP Woodwork and Twitter and Instagram at JP_Woodwork.
Joe?
On YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Average Joe's Joinery, and Instagram, it's Average Joe's Photography.
Cool. You haven't set up your new Average Joe's Joinery Instagram yet?
No, I said that yesterday, and then I went to do it, and the username's already taken. I don't know what's going on. Somebody hasn't got it. There isn't a page, but I can't use Joinery for some reason.
Oh.
Strange.
Okay, I'll give it back.
But it can't be Chris that's stolen it, because he's not on Instagram, are you, Chris? Where are you?
No, I am on Instagram. I just never post anything there. So, I mean, what's really funny about that is I have like 30 or 40 or 50 followers on YouTube, and I've never posted a damn thing there. Chris Cute on YouTube. Make the First God on Facebook is pretty friggin' simple with me, because us old folks don't diversify like you youngins do.
What about you, Alan?
Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube under the Woodworking Junkie.
Excellent. So if you're still listening and you're not bored yet, make sure you check over and subscribe, hit the bell icon, and do all that stuff on all those social media sites. So I've been Rick Morley. You can find me at brainfizz.uk and under my name on YouTube. Once again, a huge thank you for listening, and hopefully we'll see you back here next week. You all take care.
Have a great week, everybody.
See you next week.
Toodaloo.
Have a week.